This is Qtv News and I am Jada Wasonko. Thanks for joining us. First, the main local and international news headlines and the headlines from a packed weekend of sports. The people of Kiang are celebrating as they experience electricity for the first time. A new toll-free number to provide accurate and timely information to young people is up and running. The family of a 19-year-old student are becoming concerned after she failed to return home for over a fortnight. And we hear how private schools in Basse are faring following the reopening of schools in October. In international news, the situation in Ethiopia's Tigray worsens as government troops seize the regional capital. Now in sports news, Gambia's young Scorpions have triumphed in the West African Football Union's Zone A tournament in Senegal. Football loses another icon with the passing of Senegal's Pape Bouba Diop. Those were the headlines, and now the local news in detail. Thank you for joining us. Now, President Barrow on Saturday lit Kiang during an historic event to inaugurate the long-awaited and now completed Kiang electrification project. The Kiang region is experiencing electricity for the first time. Alumni has the rest of that.
Operation Light Up Kiang was the slogan in Kiang on Saturday during the historic inauguration of the long-awaited Kiang electricity expansion project. The Kiang electricity project, which started in 2017, is part of a $22.5 million loan project backed by the Export-Import Bank of India and implemented by NAWEC. It expands the Greater Banjul area network of 47 kilometers covering from Kalaji to Quinala to Tendaba and from Sankandi to Kendaba in the Kiang region. President Barrow said the project signifies his government rejects discrimination, described the project as a key milestone in the government's drive towards achieving universal access to electricity in the Gambia by 2025.
We will continue to reach out to all marginalized and disadvantaged communities as we progress with our development endeavor. My government has also secured funding to provide renewable energy in 1,100 health centers and schools across the country.
There cannot be any meaningful development in any nation without the required volume of energy generated to support its national projects and programs, business enterprises, industry and production machinery. End of quote, President Barrow further told the crowd.
I am happy to disclose that for this purpose, we have mobilized over $200 million to achieve this lofty but attainable goal. The second phase of the project will cover additional communities in Kiang Central, Kiang West, and Kiang East by early 2021.
The people of Kiang have been living in darkness for decades due to lack of access to electricity. They say the electricity, which benefits 14 villages, will greatly transform their lives and livelihoods. They are glad that a promise made is kept. In unexpected but welcome news, after consultation with the Minister of Health, the President announced that he was immediately allocating an ambulance to the people of Kabada after a plea by locals at the event. Sif Kuma, project manager, KEI Industries Limited, the contractor, thanked all the stakeholders for their support for the timely completion of the project. Ram Mohan, Indian Honorary Consulate in the Gambia, describes the Kiang project as one of the most iconic projects between the Gambia and India. He gave an assurances of India's continuous partnership. Fafa Sanyang, the Minister of Petroleum and Energy, said the inauguration has now put to rest doubts over the Kiang project, which he said was very important to the President and his government. Nani Juara, Managing Director of NAWEC, is proud that the project is completed.
They have delivered a product that they have been yearning for since the birth of this nation. It is no more a dream, but a reality.
Due to the lack of electricity, students in Kiang, unlike their peers in electrified areas, had no option but to depend on candlelight and kerosene lamps to conduct studies. Fatma Nyang is a student of Quinala Upper and Senior School.
At that time we used candle to study, but as now you can see we have electricity. We have a light so we can use it to study well.
Electricity is no more a luxury or for the rich, but a basic necessity as it is essential for our daily activities. It is expected that the government will further expand to those communities still without, bearing in mind the need to address the current unbearable power shortages in the country. Reporting for Qtv News, I am Alumni.
The National Youth Council, with support from the International Trade Center, has established a youth toll-free line 1216. I met with the acting executive director of the NYC, Alhaji Jaju, on this new development, and this is my report. Let's take a listen.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to the NYC Youth Toll-Free Line. How may I help you?
The youth toll-free line 1216 will provide accurate and timely information to young people, migrant returnees, youth associations and youth development partners. Migrant returnees are highly targeted in this initiative as it's been implemented under the project Holistic and Sustainable Reintegration of Returnees.
We want to urge all young people that the line is available, please find time and call. We've also written to all ministries and departments and partners to give us information as to what they have for young people, so we are able to really help relate this information to them, so they don't have to go to ITC, go to IOM, go to Ministry of Agriculture, go to Ministry of Trade. Within a call, we are able to provide them information from all these partners.
The youth toll-free line, the first of its kind in the country, is only available from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. currently and only accessible through a QCell and a GAMCell line in different languages. According to Jaju, the time frame for operations can be increased depending on the engagements from youth, and says the sustainability of the initiative also depends on the response from young people.
We are hopeful if the results are as expected. It's more of an experiment that we have a youth toll-free line. If we are able to have young people call in their large numbers and the feedback provided, quite useful for them, we are sure even at the level of government, this can be part of sort of a mainstream into NYC activities, and we can have the staff paid for from our own end.
The National Youth Council was established by an Act of Parliament in 2000 and mandated to coordinate, supervise youth activities and advise government and youth development partners on matters of young people in the Gambia. Reporting for Qtv News, I am Jenna Basonko. Efforts are being made to find a 19-year-old woman who has gone missing for more than 2 weeks. Aissatou E. Koli is a grade 11 student at Mayok Senior Secondary School in Fonyi, West Coast Region. Babukar Sise has the rest of that.
Family, friends, and loved ones are desperate to know the whereabouts of this young woman who left home on the 15th of November and never returned. The information gathered from her family is that she left her guardian's house in Mayok and was going to visit her grandmother who lives in Kanilai. Her guardian made this frantic effort to find her.
I went
to Kanilai and she was not there. I visited her friends, but she was not with them. I cycled more than 10 kilometers to Dobong, but they also didn't see her. For 4 days now, I have not eaten because I am worried. The principal of Mayok Upper Basic and Senior Secondary School, Amedu Antien Jaju, explains what he knows about Aissatou.
She's an easygoing girl. She had a lot of friends. She's very close to the teachers. She's very open. Anytime she comes and happen to see me around the administrative block, she will come and greet and pass. She went missing, not on a school day. It was on the 15th of November 2020. When I came back from weekend on the 16th, that's Monday, in the evening, I was approached by the child's guardian, and who reported to me that the girl has gone missing.
Aissatou's father, Ibrahim Eskoli, who is out of the country at the moment, says Aissatou is his first child, and anyone who has information about her should contact the police immediately. Her mother, Hawa Jeju, made this desperate and emotional appeal.
I want the whole country to help me because I am tired. My daughter is a good girl. She always goes to school and comes back home. It is sad to miss your daughter even for one day.
because sumut anyilan walo hanfuna fo juktoja ni epetora.
Not knowing where your missing child is or being treated is one of the hardest things. 1 minute you are hopeful of finding her, the next you despair and fear the worst. Life will become an emotional roller coaster that won't stop until you find your missing child. The family is praying not to hear the worst possible scenario and are hopeful that with the help of the police and the public, Aissatou will be found sooner rather than later. Babakar Sise, QTV News.
We will go for a short commercial break, and when we come back, the news continues with some more international and some more local news. Do stay tuned. Welcome back from that short commercial break. If you're just tuning in, this is QTV News. Now on to some international news. The International Committee of the Red Cross has said that the main hospital in the capital of Ethiopia's northern region of Tigray is dangerously low on supplies as it treats the wounded from the fighting around the city. More in this report.
The Geneva-based organization said the Ethiopian Red Cross ambulances had taken injured and diseased people to the Ada Referral Hospital. And on a visit to the hospital, ICRC staff found 80% of patients to be suffering from trauma injuries, adding that other services had to be suspended so that limited staff and resources could be devoted to emergency medical care. The ICRC also adds that the hospital is running dangerously low on sutures, antibiotics and anticoagulants, painkillers, body bags for the deceased and even gloves. In a statement on Twitter on Saturday, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said that federal forces had taken full control of Mekelle city in what he described as the last phase in the 3-week-long conflict with the Tigray People's Liberation Front. However, in a statement to Reuters, the TPLF leader vowed that the Tigray forces were ready to die in defense of what he describes as their right to administer their own region. Few details have emerged from Tigray throughout the fighting as communications have been cut. Even though the TPLF leader's whereabouts are unknown, a TPLF statement read out on regional Tigray TV said, "Totalitarian bombings have caused civilian deaths and injuries. The Tigray government has vowed that it would take retaliatory actions against the barbaric bombings." Analysts say the TPLF could now be preparing to return to the mountains to launch a guerrilla war against the federal government. Ethiopia and its northern neighbor, Eritrea, have a long and troubled history of conflict. But today, the former enemies stand together in the fight against the TPLF. However, experts have said even though the two countries are fighting together against a common enemy, that does not make them friends. The Ethiopian authorities said on Thursday that a humanitarian access route overseen by the government would be opened, adding they were committed to work with UN agencies to protect civilians and those who need it. Also, on Thursday, Ethiopian troops were deployed along Tigray's border with Sudan, preventing people fleeing the violence from leaving the country, according to refugees. In an update released on Saturday, the UN said that more than 40,000 Ethiopians had crossed over since the fighting began in early November. Ethiopia's state-appointed Human Rights Commission has accused a Tigrayan youth group of being behind a massacre this month in which it says more than 600 non-Tigrayan civilians in the town of Maikadra were killed. The TPLF denied involvement. In a meeting on Friday, Mr. Abiy told African peace envoys that civilians would be protected. The TPLF fighters, drawn mostly from a paramilitary unit and a well-drilled local militia, are thought to number about 250,000. 3 African Union envoys who met with Abiy, former presidents Joaquim Chissano of Mozambique, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf of Liberia, and Kakalema Motlanthe of South Africa, urged the Ethiopian leader this week to open dialogue with the rebelling TPLF. He has so far refused. For QTV News, I am Mahmoud Mbouch.
Now on to some more local news stories. Private schools in Basse are facing shortages of staff, rent and salary payment as challenges to begin proper delivery of education following the resumption of schools after the COVID-19 enforced closures. Alaji A.F. Jallo narrates this story by Fode Mane.
During the closure of schools and other educational institutions across the country, private schools were hit hard by not being able to generate funds. Many owners fear their institution will be out of business unless they get support. The proprietor of Destiny Domain, Emmanuel Aligongo, says he lost almost half of his teaching staff and is worried that those left might not get their salary.
We lost most of our staff. Most of them did not come back. I can say about 50% of our staff did not come back to school. And those ones that are very close to us, that are top management, and that we, one way or the other, we encourage them by getting the private classes for them and that sustain them during the pandemic. Those are those staff that we were able to get back. We are still giving them hope that government will come to our heads one day. Then we will be able to do a drawback of all their salary. So this is where we are holding them. And we are hoping also to encourage them with the little amount that we will have at the end of the year from the previous school fees that we were able to collect. So this is what we are facing presently. It's a big challenge.
Abubakar Kurbali of Tiebros Memorial School said 5 staff left his school. He called on the government to extend support to private school. With the change in contact hours, Kurbali said his school is badly affected.
It's just an extra expenditure on us because now the upper grades, like from grade 2, 3, 4, are all coming in the afternoon. The lower ones are coming in the morning to enable the social distancing, which is definitely a challenge for us in our classrooms. But we are trying to comply. And again, meaning you have to put all your teachers on double shift because the cohort of teachers you have, all of them have to be in the morning shift and also in the afternoon shift so that you can be able to cover up the missing time. We are also struggling to cover up the lost hours during the lockdown. We have adjusted times on our timetable to enable us cover up the lost time as we go along.
A senior staff member at Destiny Domain School, Boaro Keta, says the introduction of the new contact hours has really affected their teaching process as most of them are not used to afternoon shifts.
During the contact hours, students of Destiny Domain School, have not been going to double shifting, and then, the afternoon shift has been constraints to them. They are not used to it. But to make them comfortable as a school, we went extra miles to ensure that we encourage and motivate them by providing their needs, providing what they want. And also, as staff, we are not used to double shifting. It's also a problem to most of the staff. They are not used to this double shifting.
Private schools are not government funded and rely on other means of funding, such as endowments, donations, and school fees. When schools were closed, children did not attend classes and no school fees were being paid. Unless something is done to bail out these schools, their woes will always continue to grow and impact greatly on their students' process. For QTV News, I am Alaji A.F. Jallo.
Over $200,000 was presented to Armitage High School by the 1974 to 1979 alumni. The funds raised through voluntary contribution by members will go towards acquisition of furniture for the school. Alaji A.F. Jallo reports.
The donation came at a time when the school has been grappling with furniture constraint for students due to the increase in student population. At a colorful ceremony held at the school grounds in Janjambure, the president of the organization, Pache Busen, said ex-students are obliged to contribute to the development of the school.
What prompted us actually is that we really kept together all along since we left school, so we were in touch with each other. And then, thank God, most of us had really risen to very responsible positions. We would say that Armitage gave us everything. Armitage gave us a lot. So we started thinking, and then there was a group of our team who started thinking, yes, what can we do for Armitage?
Mr. Sen further stated that
we, the past students, are very proud of the school and implore current and future students to do likewise. We are currently registering the Armitage class of 74 to 79 as an NGO, that's a non-governmental organization. And our focus will be on assisting Armitage as much as we can achieve the academic, social, and developmental objectives of the school.
Lamin B. Keita, alias Takatiti, urged former students to be steadfast in their endeavors and dedicated in keeping the ideals and aspirations of their former schools that has transformed many lives.
I feel to cry. Yeah, I really mean to cry. Here you are. If you borrow, you must carry. We are standing for this school and the good name. Said to me by the chief of Sankule Kunda, Lamin Balde, said when Armitage was earlier going to be established, our parents were in skeptics. Would this work for the African world? Only when they were convinced, students were brought to this school, and it started with the children of the rulers who were then the savers. That's why nominally, you go to these places like Kudan, Nyamina Dankunku, you go to Krubal Kunda or Basse.
The deputy head boy of the school, Usman Sani, and Adama Jaju, a metalwork student, thanked the sponsors, expressing delight.
I receive it happily because furniture is very important to us as students, because I feel very bad when I go to some classes to inspect and I see students putting their books on their laps to write.
They did a great job for our school because we were having shortage of desks, especially to get 10 grades. So we were very happy to receive them. In the process of making this, it was a little bit hard as a female. It was a little bit hard because the cutting of the irons needs strength. So the boys were the ones who helped. We were participating on the side of the welding. It was hard, but we really did conquer it.
Armitage High School in Georgetown, now known as Janjambure, was established in 1927 and is one of the oldest schools in the Gambia. The school celebrated its 90th anniversary in 2017. Reporting for QTV News, I am Alaji A.F. Jallo.
We will take another short commercial break, and when we come back, we will take a look at some sports news. Do stay tuned. Welcome back from that short commercial break. If you're just tuning in, this is QTV News. Now on to sports news. The Gambia Under-20 Scorpions are crowned champions of the WAF Zone A Under-20 tournament after defeating host Senegal on penalties in the final following a 2-2 draw. The victory saw the young Scorpions avenge their victory in the competition and seal a spot in the African Under-20 Cup of Nations in Mauritania 2021. Our reporter Mamadou Gajaga watched the finals and he fastened the sport.
Scenes of celebration following a dramatic penalty shootout after an exciting and nerve-wracking 2-2 draw in regulation and extra time, which couldn't separate the neighbours. Host Senegal replied twice when the visitors took the lead in either half of the game. Habibou Mendy put the young Scorpions in the lead after just 4 minutes, only for Dangerman John Lopi to level with a towering header for the young Teranga Lions 2 minutes before the break, ensuring the sides went into the second half with the scores at 1-1. Senegal, with their attacking approach, piled a lot of pressure on the visitors, who defended deep, hitting them on the counter, a tactic which seemed to be mastered by the players. Kajali Drame used his ball control technique before finding a space with a run to put his low shot into the bottom corner, restoring his side's advantage. It was his second goal of the tournament, having scored in a 2-1 win against Guinea in the semi-finals. The host, stunned by this, upped the pressure and didn't let it last for long. 10 minutes later, Biram Jao scored with a close-range finish. as the Scorpions' defense failed to close the space. At 2-2, the game was evenly poised. Senegal had several near misses, but couldn't score as the game went into extra time. Lamin Jawara would be sent off for a dangerous high foot on an opponent in the closing stages of the first half extra time. Despite being a man down, the young Scorpions held on, taking the match to a penalty shootout. Mamadou Bojang had stepped up to confidently dispatch the first spot kick, and John Lopi in reply for Senegal, so his shot squam under the Gambian keeper, who must have felt aggrieved not to have saved it. Tijan Mar scored for the Gambia, and Mohamed Lamin Camara converted for Senegal. Baba Cisse then scored for Gambia, and in response, Senegal's third spot kick was saved by the Gambia keeper. However, Gambia's advantage was squandered by the skipper James Gomez, who blazed his shot on the bar. But the hero was goalkeeper Lamin Seydi for the young Scorpions, who saved 2 spot kicks before Ibrahim Drame missed when his shot hit the post, sparking jubilation for the young Scorpions. Despite missing out the place in the AFCON Under-20 and losing the final, coach Youssoufa Dabo says his players gave their best.
L'a été moins, parce que dans l'analyse, on voulait vraiment utiliser cette zone pour les mettre en difficulté, parce qu'on savait qu'ils allaient attendre.
Matar Mboj says he believed in his boys, who played according to his game plan.
If you look at losing to our arch rivals, not 1-0, 2-0, 5-1, losing, a man going down to 10 men, I'm sure there's nobody on this earth, maybe apart from my family and my players and my staff, who thought that we could come back and win. I had that belief, believe me, because we knew what happened in that first game was not correct, and we knew that once we got to the final, we worked so hard to get to the final, we just knew that it was a second chance.
For the young Scorpions, this was a sweet revenge for the 5-1 dropping at the hands of the same opponents. Now the young Scorpions join host Mauritania as the 2 teams to qualify from the WAFU Zone A in the AFCON Under-20 next year. Although Mauritania qualify automatically as the host nation, they use this tournament to give their team some competitive matches. In summing up the whole tournament, it was a great advert for West African football, as we saw a lot of skillful football, highly competitive and entertaining games. The overall standard was very high, and if all these teams get the right support, the future looks bright for football in the region. This broadcast is proudly brought to you by Inco. Mamadou Gajaga, Qtv News, Thiès, Senegal.
Senegal and African football icon Pape Bouba Diop has died at the age of 42 after what is described as a long illness.
The news of his death was confirmed by Senegal's Football Federation. They said the player had died in the French capital, Paris, on Sunday. This is how most of the global football audience first came to know him, scoring and then wheeling away after scoring the goal that defeated a star-studded France team, who are world champions, in the opening match of the 2002 World Cup. The goal sparked wild celebrations across Africa and by African football fans the world over. On the pitch, Diop's run to the corner flag to be joined by his teammates dancing round his shirt on the ground became one of the defining images of that World Cup. Ironically, a week before his death, that goal and its celebration had been chosen on the FIFA website as one of the defining first-day World Cup memories. It was the second time an African team had shocked the world champions in an opening match, the other being when Argentina, led by Maradona, were defeated by Cameroon by the same score at Italian 90. Senegal would go on to finish second in the group in which they had been expected to finish last and make it all the way to the quarterfinals, where they lost 1-0 after extra time to Turkey. The exploits will earn Diop and many of his teammates lucrative club moves away from France and mainly to England. Diop would go first to Fulham, where he played for 3 seasons, then on to Portsmouth, where he was an FA Cup winner. His manager at Portsmouth, Harry Redknapp, has been among those paying tribute, describing Diop as, "He was such a wonderful character," Redknapp told BBC Radio 5 Live. "He was fantastic for me, a great character, always happy and always had a smile on his face. He was a giant of a man. He had no aggression in him. He looked aggressive on the pitch because he was so big, but there was nothing nasty about him. My thoughts are with all his family." After 3 years at Portsmouth, he transferred to Greek giants AEK Athens. However, after one season there, he was back in England, where he played for two more clubs, West Ham United, where he spent a season, and Birmingham City, where he played only 2 matches before bringing down the curtain on his playing career. Whenever an African player scores at the World Cup, the whole of Africa rejoices, and so it proved to be for Buba Diop. To also have done it against the world champions and the national team of the country where he had played his club football made it extra special. He was a competitive defensive midfielder who also scored the occasional goal. On social media, there has been an outpouring of tributes to the man described as a gentle giant. Former teammates as well as former opponents have paid tribute, as have all his former clubs. The presidents of Senegal and the Gambia both paid tribute to him, and all the British newspapers carried the news of the death of a much-loved footballer. Senegal President Macky Sall said, "The death of Pape Bouba Diop is a great loss for Senegal. I pay tribute to a good footballer, respected by all for his courtesy and his talent, proudly reminding us of the Lion saga in 2002. I offer my heartfelt condolences to his family and to the football world." Gambia's President Adama Barrow on Twitter, replying to the message from his Senegalese counterpart, said, "On behalf of the people of the Gambia, I extend my sincere condolences to the family of Pape Bouba Diop, Your Excellency, at Macky Sall, the people of Senegal, and all football lovers. May his soul rest in eternal peace." Mohamed Lamin Choy, Qtv News.
Gamtel FC and CAF Football Club over the weekend took part in the CAF Champions League and Confederation Cup preliminaries. Both sides failed to capitalize on home advantage in Banjul, and Gamtel lost to Das de Casablanca of Morocco, while the Khaki Boys of the Armed Forces were forced to settle for a 1-all draw against Senegal champions Tengej FC. Babukar C reports.
A late goal from Yusuf Rayani was all Tas de Casablanca needed to hold the advantage going into the second leg against host Gamtel in the first leg of the CAF Confederation Cup preliminaries. In a keggy affair in which both sides created few chances, the Moroccans looked the better side for most part of the game, despite the telecommunication giants having some decent chances to break the deadlock. As expected, Musa Kamara, in goal for Gamtel, proved his worth again by pulling off some brilliant saves that could have given the Casablanca side a comfortable lead. The first half ended goalless, with both sides making substitutions in the second half with the hope of a better second half. After a long wait, it was the TAS side whose substitution paid dividends as new entrant Yusuf Rayani spent a little time on the pitch before lashing home a thunderous shot, leaving the goalkeeper Musa Kamara with no choice but to watch the ball whiz pass into the roof of the net. After the goal, the Moroccans sat comfortably behind to defend the lone goal while employing some time-wasting tactics. Gamtel, on the other hand, did all they could, but it wasn't enough to shake off a well-prepared and matured Casablanca side. Both teams will have another 90 minutes to fight again, and this time in Morocco's largest city, Casablanca. If our telecommunication giants wants to have any decent result in the away fixture next weekend, they have to prepare better than they did in Banjul. Having failed to score at home, they need victory by a more than 1-goal margin to progress. Meanwhile, in the CAF Champions League preliminaries, played on Sunday at the Independence Stadium, Gambia Armed Forces couldn't get a win against Senegalese champions Tengej FC as the visitors grabbed a late equalizer to force the game to a 1-all draw. The return leg will be played next weekend in Senegal. Only a win or a high-scoring draw will see them progress through on aggregate. Babukar C, QTV News.
Gambian former light heavyweight boxing champion Badou Jack made a successful return to the ring over the weekend after almost a year out of the ring. More in this report.
As he climbed into the ring to take on undefeated Blake McCannon, there must have been doubts in Jack's mind. After all, it was almost a year since he had last fought, and he and his fans must certainly have been worried about ring rust. For his part, Jack must have been worried about his recent record. Of his previous 5 fights, he had only registered 1 with 2 defeats and 2 draws. However, these stats don't come close to telling the full story. Of the fights he lost or drew, many fight experts felt he had done enough to win. The losses and draws were all split decisions. Jack was fighting in a non-title fight on the undercard of one of the most talked about and unlikely bouts of the year, an exhibition match between 2 boxing greats, Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. By the reckoning of most fight fans, the Tyson vs. Jones bout was exciting enough, but the real fighting was in the Badujak versus Blake McCannon bout. McCannon, an army vet who sometimes came into the ring accompanied by soldiers, was coming to the fight with a perfect record of 13 wins from 13 fights, with 6 of them by knockout. Tyson and Jones were said to be getting $10 million each, and although his fee was not disclosed, Jack had tweeted that some of his earnings on the night would go to his charity foundation. Jack's fans need not have worried. He came into the ring in perfect condition and completely dominated his opponent from the opening bell. In spite of McCannon's so far great record, it was clear early on that he was facing an opponent in Jack far superior in skills to any he had previously encountered. For his part, given the close decisions that had gone against him, he was leaving nothing to chance or to the officials. In truth, the contest ended up being pretty one-sided, with Jack winning all 8 rounds. The judge's decision could only be what it was: unanimous. For McCannon, it is a case of back to the drawing board. For Jack, he will feel he is ready to once again mix it with world-class and world champion opponents. Mahmoud Lamin Choi, Qtv News.
Following the return of football after a long break caused by COVID-19 pandemic, Basse Sports Committee recently staged the finals of their highly competitive Super Cup competition. Alaji A.F. Jallo has the rest of that.
The event took place on Saturday at the Basse Mini Stadium in the presence of officials from the Ministry of Youth and Sports, sponsors and fans from URR. The opening games saw Gambana FC of Gambesara lock horns with Kobakunda FC to compete for the finals. Within the first 5 minutes of the first half, Gambana FC netted their first goal, an indication that it was likely to be a match full of goals. And so it turned out. The match ended with Gambana FC winning by 4-1, with Gambana FC players Yusufa Jabi scoring 2 early goals, Ibrahim Drame scoring the third, and Mohamed Jame netting the final goal from the penalty spot. Kobakunda FC managed to score a consolation goal in the dying minutes of the game. Handing over the trophies and cash prize at the end of the match, the Deputy Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Sports, Sute Jao, reaffirms government's commitment in developing sports by creating the right environment for the youths to showcase their talents.
If you are following news in the Gambia, particularly with regards to development of sports and development of sporting facilities in the country, you will realize that we are trying to construct mini stadiums across the country. That has already started. One is at a place where you talk about Diabogo. We will redo the high level field, the oldest field in Basse, to standard, of course, through the help of the First Lady. We will do this very field as where you are standing today. I want to tell you that government is preparing itself to reconstruct this field to at least house for a 30,000 capacity seater stadium, so that at least all the international matches that may be housed by the Gambia will now be played in places like Basse and any other regional capital.
The secretary of the Basse Sports Committee, Esa Kanote, praised the sponsors, but also raised eyebrows over the URR Football Association's emergency response packages given to teams.
This is the first final that we have seen such an amount of cash prize being given out to the winners and the runners-up. So, Alaji, we must be very thankful and be very grateful to the sponsors. We do hear from the start of the COVID-19, we do hear, the FA and other people taking subvention gifts from Banjul or to other from other areas. That should be, we believe that when they get it as these things should filter down to the people on the grassroots. We are very much disappointed. We know that there is a fund for this, but this fund does not reach to us.
The captain of Gambana FC, after their victory, had this to say.
I feel very happy, so happy, because since we came, so we try our best here and we win the trophy.
Haruna Toure, the president of Soccer Gia for Gambia and the main sponsor of the final, expressed delight and promised to do more to support grassroots football.
The objective is that to collect gently used or even new soccer items from the US, from different states, and bring it to Gambia here and distribute it to needy people. One of the reasons that I started doing this because there's nothing like home. And I know how home is. In other words, we have so many people who don't have access to basic football gear items.
Soccer Gear for Gambia donated sets of jerseys, footballs, football boots, changing boards, among others, to more than 25 teams in URR with the aim of encouraging youth to get into sports. For QTV News, I am Alaji A.F. Jallo.
Before we end this news bulletin, we have a quick announcement to make from the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs. The announcement says that domestic pump prices of petrol, diesel, kerosene will now sell at 42.53 bututes, 42.4 bututes, and 33.25 bututes respectively, with effects from tomorrow, 1st December 2020. The release advises oil marketing companies to adhere to these new prices. The press release goes on to say the ministry will continue to monitor developments in the appropriate adjustments as and when necessary. The release ends. Before we end this news bulletin, let's take a quick look at our main stories. The people of Kiang are celebrating as they experience electricity for the first time. A new toll-free number to provide accurate and timely information to young people is up and running. The family of a 19-year-old student are becoming concerned after she failed to return home for over a fortnight. And we heard how some private schools in Basse are faring following the reopening of schools in October. In international news, the situation in Ethiopia's Tigray worsens as government troops seize the regional capital. In sports news, Gambia's young Scorpions have triumphed in the West African Football Union's Zone A tournament in Senegal. Football loses another icon with the passing of Senegal's Pape Bouba Diop. Well, that is all we have for you in this edition of QTV News. Do join us at 10 for another bulletin. Thanks for watching.